All right. All right. Okay. That's cool. Well, today we're going to talk about an animal. We're going back to standard formation here today. I don't know if you heard it. At one point I said it, but I wasn't sure if you actually were getting audio. So we're gonna play 20 questions.
Ooh, love this game.
What animal do you think we're talking about today, or do you already know?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Cool,
We had some fun time getting this one set up today.
That took half an hour. That took half an hour.
Half an hour of us doing some behind the scenes audio work.
Yeah, I hope we have eliminated that issue. Anyway.
All right, so you want me to ask you the questions, or are you going to ask me the questions?
You have. Oh, I guess. How does this game work? I think
I have to ask you the questions.
Yeah.
All right. Does it have hair?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a mammal?
Yes. You're on fire.
Does it walk on two legs?
No.
Does it walk on four legs?
Yes.
Okay. Is it over 500 pounds?
Yes.
Does it have a trunk?
No.
No. Oh. Does it have a stuffed animal named after a president?
No.
Oh, shoot. Does it eat meat?
No.
Oh, so it's a big... Is it a giraffe?
No. I'll give you a hint. They're all over the place in our neck of the woods.
Oh, is it a moose?
No.
But...
What's a little smaller than a moose?
Is it elk?
It's elk.
It's elk. We're doing elk.
We're doing elk, and we're gonna. Yeah, me too. We'll definitely have to talk about some elk experiences and how nice elk are.
Oh yeah.
Today we're gonna focus on a couple of different elk populations, literally two, which selfishly some Montana elk, and selfishly some Pennsylvania elk.
Oh, they have elk in Pennsylvania?
Not something you hear every day, is it, Bear Putt?
That is a Western-only animal to me.
Girlfriend.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember when I learned this, but I was like, you're kidding me. There's elk in Pennsylvania? What a strange phenomenon. I think everybody's, well, maybe you aren't. So what does an elk look like? It kind of looks like a deer. It kind of looks like a moose. It's the second largest deer. Deer being like a moose, elk, red deer, whitetail, mule, kind of a thing. The Shawnee and Cree word for it is wapiti. So you can take that home and put in your pocket. A male elk ranges from about 4 to 5 feet tall, and their antlers can come in at another 4 feet. So that's a large creature. That's
like a
9
foot tall.
And that doesn't surprise me. I'm thinking about one close encounter with an elk I had, where it was nice. I was in the Grand Canyon, so I was in Arizona. I wasn't in the canyon, but I was driving out of the park, and I'm like, traffic slows up, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I look, and there's a big old bull right there, and it's just like, dang, that's big cool animal. And I at that point, I didn't even know they were in Arizona, but
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, they do be all over the place. Also in California, the Dakotas, just kind of sprinkled all over the Rockies and Sierras and whatnot. So yeah, that's a fun thing. So yeah, of course, the bulls. They get those yearly antlers. Those antlers they come in the spring, early spring, and it's a constant cycle. They immediately come on and they fall off, which is interesting. I think one of my favorite things about elk is the noises they make.
Ah, the bugle.
Yeah, you've heard the elk and the elk rut.
Mm-hmm. I have had some pretty cool experiences with that.
Yeah? Well, tell me more.
Yeah, so I remember it was a couple of years ago. I had just gotten back from Thunderbird. Oh.
As per usual.
And
yeah.
Yep, as per usual. So I was camping all summer. Fall rolled around. I was like, I'm in the mood for some camping.
Yeah.
So went out to camp over in the Snowy Range, which is the mountain range near Laramie.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't bring a sleeping pad. I kind of just rush job camped because I was just missing going outside.
Yeah.
It's freezing cold. I'm not sleeping well. And so I wake up in the middle of the night. And I'm sitting there. It's pitch black in the tent. And just thinking, what am I doing here? This is a lot. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. I feel like I've made poor choices, and I definitely made some poor choices. Reasonable. But it all came to fruition because as I'm sitting in the tent, just trying to keep warm, I hear it just off softly in the distance. Screaming elk noises. I was like, oh, it's beautiful noise.
Worth it. Beautiful.
Oh, and I walked out of the tent, stars were out, and I was like, this is why. This is why we do it.
Yeah, exactly. Gonna come right back at you with another Thunderbird story. Yeah, so we were in where were we? The Bighorns, aka Ungulate Heaven. So we had been having a great couple of days. We saw probably 5 moose, some pretty close up, some bulls from a great distance, just really nice. And then when we went backpacking, although we didn't see them, we had a whole herd pass very close by, and they were bugling literally all night. And if you've ever heard the Deer Enthusiast intro, it was recorded that night, which is an elk bugling.
Oh.
Yeah. So I definitely freaking love elk.
Mm-hmm.
Some other noises they make are mews and squalls. Those are specific to the cows, the ladies. And those are just other communicative tools for them. And they all also bark in case of danger. I didn't look up that wolf sound. Yeah, hopefully we can find some. We'll put it in here, but yeah, I've only heard bugling, but I thought that was interesting. So there's so there's a little bit of debate whether elk and red deer are the same animal, basically. Okay. Some people consider them to be the same species. It seems popular to not consider them as the same species. They're significantly larger deer. The elk are significantly larger than red-tailed deer, in some cases like twice the size. I know I said how tall they are, but I did want to add that a male elk can get up to about 800 to 900 pounds, or 7 to 1100. My mistake. And the cows are at around 500 to 600 pounds.
Big hosses.
Big thickums over there, and all they do is eat. They're grazers. They're just looking for food all day, every day. Like we said, they can be found in many of the high mountainous regions of the West, down to Southern California. And I believe they are smaller in Southern California because there's not as much food. They can also be found in the mountains of Central Asia.
Ooh.
Not to mention a select place in the East. But we'll talk about that later. So, an interesting part about the, well, I don't know if it's that interesting, but I'm sure you're here because you like mundane animal facts. um, so, a little bit about their migration habits here in Montana. Following the first snowstorm, before the first snowstorm, you'll have the elk in higher mountainous regions grazing. But once the first long snowstorm comes in around this time of the year, November, they're going to start going to lower elevations. So they'll do spring and winter among kind of the Sun River, and then they'll be moving towards the Bob Marshall Wilderness in the summer. And an interesting conservation story. Sorry, I had the word capitalism in my head, and it just made a sentence sandwich. Everything was on top of each other.
Just ruining everything per usual. Capitalism on the brain.
Usual. So an interesting thing about the Flathead in the Sun River management area, it was privately owned for a while, and I'm not sure how much acreage it is, but we're talking thousands of acres here. But basically, the person who owned it was wanting to sell it in 1947. He wanted to sell that area, which was great because elk are a big thing for elk is losing habitat. That's the reason. That's a major reason why we've gone down so many gosh darn elk is because they're losing habitat. So they on a Saturday at 11 a.m. when the banks closed at noon. The deal was offered to the Montana Fish and Game Commission, and they had 1 hour to buy it. And this is in 47 too, so it's not even like you could just hop online and take care of everything or whatever. But thankfully, two nice, well-to-do people bought it. Well, they went in on the land, bought it right away, and held it for the Montana Fish and Game.
It's pretty awesome.
Wilderness or whatever, not Montana Fish and Game Commission. I thought that was pretty cool. It was nice of those people to do that. What would be nicer if setting aside most of the land as wildlife areas, but hey, we'll take what we can get, baby.
Yeah, I'd say. It's always interesting too because I know a lot of people. They talk about the idea that this conservation and this idea of saving animals and saving nature is like these new young people thing. But I mean, as you can tell, like back in the 40s, they are doing that. They are taking initiatives to save like beautiful pieces of land for beings not like ourselves.
Yeah, conservation is never going out of style, if you ask me.
No. Always look. It's fitting on everyone.
Pretty sexy. Yeah. We love conservation. So a little bit about the life cycle. Calves are born at 45 pounds. So, like a medium-sized dog. And they gain 2 pounds per day in their first few months of life.
Ooh.
Living the friggin' dream.
I say just beefing up, bulking up. It's bulking season for these things.
Bulking season. That's a little something about those. So once the elk are in their bachelor herds, they feed. That's going to kind of start happening in the fall, winter, spring. They're just eating. By summer, their antlers stop receiving blood. So that's interesting. Generally, while they're growing, they're covered in velvet. They're receiving blood, but then the blood, I think, at the beginning of summer cuts off. And the velvet sheds, and they will rub them against trees to get the velvet off, and it also ends up sharpening their antlers for the rut, so they can stab their opponents and keep their harems. And what a harem is, that is basically a bunch of females that the male is mating with. So male's trying to hold down like 4 or 5 girlfriends and fight off the intruding male who's trying to steal his ladies.
Okay. So just
pretty metal.
So it's always just like one male.
Precisely. It's not. They're not sharing.
Okay, so it's not like a herd where you maybe see like 2 or 3 with like a bunch of ladies around.
No, it's definitely going to be like that male is trying to have as many females just for him as he can, and he's gonna fight to the death to make that happen.
That was my next question. I was like, is it always like trying to kill them, or is it just trying to like get them out of there?
I think it's just trying to get them out of there. I'm sure death is a natural, byproduct of it. I'm sure that can, you break a leg, you get a nice stab, that gets infected, you get eaten by wolves. That's probably the consequence of losing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Incidental killings.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And so that is September. That marks the rut. They mostly eat grass, twigs, and will occasionally eat fruit. But they're definitely trying to munch on grass. There are some other barks that they eat, but we'll come back to that. So not 100 million, 10 million. That sounds more right.
Okay.
So there were 10 million elk in North America before colonization. By the early 1900s, they were whittled down to 41,000.
Not good. Not a good look. I'm going to be real.
No, that's 10 million to 41,000. And of course, we are back, at least by 2014, they were at 1 million. I'm sure those numbers have increased by now. But good conservation effort. But that's crazy. So, interestingly enough, like we mentioned earlier, there's a little place in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, where is this?
Well, Boots, think. It's in Elk County, Pennsylvania.
I thought it was going to be in Hershey. I'm going to be real with you.
No, that's probably about 3 or 4 hours from Hershey, I think.
Oh, okay. I only just know of Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Big, that's fair. It's a big state. But no, there's Philadelphia, there's Pittsburgh, there's Hershey, and there's Elk County, Pennsylvania.
Those are the only 3 places, or 4 places.
Those are the only 4 places. Actually, this is, if for all our Pennsylvania heads out there, you're going to learn some stuff about PA, which is exciting, being my state of origin. So there's like Elk County Visitor Center in Benezet, Pennsylvania, which is in that county, I believe. We're right next to it. So at one point, there was about 100,000 elk in Pennsylvania, which isn't a surprise with those numbers. Yeah, but by the 1860s, they were removed. The 1860s seems like a popular time to kill all the animals in the area, which, of course, that's the Industrial Revolution time, and so logging.
Does it coincide with the Civil War?
No, but that's all kind of, there's the, I feel like the cacophony of things that happen. And I mean, right, because the Civil War, you see increased death with increased technology, and that's, of course, a common theme in every conflict throughout history, and especially post-industrial revolution when killing gets easier, and whatnot. Of course, we don't really see the full caliber of that industrial revolution war till World War I, kind of. Mm-hmm. But so I don't think it has really much in common with the Civil War, except that of continued industrialization, and war is historically an excuse for the government to not care about anything but murder and profit. So in that way, you're right. But otherwise,
why would you care about elk in the wartime?
Yeah. What do you think their hooves are made out of?
Is it the same material that their antlers are made out of?
No.
Is it? No, I don't know. Is it like the rhinoceros where it's one big hair?
I'll give you one. What? Wait, what'd you say?
Oh, I say, well, didn't you know, like, isn't like the rhinoceros horn? I remember that one. It's always made out of hair. So I was like, maybe they have hairy feet.
Yeah. So what's hair made out of?
I don't know. I'm not a.
What are your fingernails made out of?
Fingernails. I actually don't know.
Keratin.
Keratin. Okay, I'll say I nearly flunked out of all bio classes.
Clearly. Yeah, their hooves are made out of keratin. So that's a little fun fact. So kind of crazy in the early 1900s. Some white boys were sitting around like, hey, we should get some elk over here. Actually, what was really happening is there had been a really great initiative to preserve the Rocky Mountain elk in Yellowstone National Park.
Okay.
But their population was getting a little overwhelming, and they were getting hit with really long, hard winters. So a significant portion of the population was dying out from starvation. So what they did was they shipped some to Pennsylvania.
Why not?
Why not?
First class, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. By railroad. And the railroad days seemed pretty fun. TBH. So they shipped about 100 at that point, I think, to get started. They shipped about 100 elk to PA, which is wild. Because, you know, the habitat is pretty straightforward. And like deer and many of those ungulate critters, they really like, some open fields to graze on. So Pennsylvania had that, and we'll talk about how they've made more of that. Well, basically, ironically, the logging created a lot of different areas that were actually pretty good for elk because they chop down trees and there's a bunch of fresh vegetation. Ideally, however, you kind of want to mix. You want old growth and new growth in there for them to eat.
Okay.
But it was nice that Pennsylvania they were able to redeem that. And a lot of the Pennsylvania story is going to kind of be a redemption story for the environment, which is charming. What time do you think would be the best time to see an elk?
Well, I imagine it's rut season. When they're
time of
looking
day.
for
Time
ladies.
of day.
Oh,
What
okay.
time of day?
What time of day? Well, if they're looking for ladies, probably happy hour since they're looking for ladies. I'm guessing more around the evening.
You're not
time.
wrong. Exactly, happy hour, and so early morning and evenings. So like dusk, and what do you know what that behavior is called when they're more active at those times?
It's not nocturnal.
No.
I don't know then.
Crepuscular. They're crepuscular creatures.
It's a good word.
I'm going to ask you a question, and if you get the order right, next time I see you, I'm buying you a cold, frosty beer.
Ooh, shoot. I better get this right then.
Okay. And I'm going to make this easy for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to... there's four. We're going to talk about the four main type of deer.
Okay, we got 4 deer.
Deer being the category of these creatures. You kind of get this idea, right? How there's more than one. You're right. You get that.
Yeah, we got 4.
Okay. Can you, in order, from largest to smallest, tell me the size order of these creatures? So, what are the top? What in order? What are the sizes of the 4 types of deer?
And these are like the North American deer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 1 is moose.
Yeah.
Yep, number 1 is moose. Number 2 is the elk.
Told you that earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, so you got me there. Number 3 is a white-tailed deer.
No.
Oh,
This is hard. All right, you know what? Let's back up. Well, it's actually obvious now if I tell you. I can't really give you a hint, so I'm just going to tell you. Okay. Honestly, I'd probably buy you a beer anyway just because I like you. But in order, it's moose, elk, caribou, a.k.a. reindeer.
The reindeer.
Then deer. Just deer. Mule deer or whitetails.
Mule deer, whitetails, all that kind of jazz.
So, so that's that size order. So, sorry, kid, you're not going to Disney World, but
shoot,
it's okay. And I gotta say, for the elk that did get moved to Pennsylvania, in some ways it's kind of a lottery when you think about it. Like, I mean, when you think about predatory species in Yellowstone, you're going to think of grizzly bears, mountain lions, wolves.
Oh yeah.
Well, by
Does
that
Pennsylvania
time,
have any of those?
none. They did. They had wolves and mountain lions, but those
Listen to
were
our
hunted
previous
to
episode.
extinction. Yeah, exactly. They were all hunted
To
to
learn all about the
extinction.
mountain lion.
In the East, which is BS, bring them back. Bring back wolves and mountain lions.
Put them on a train. Let's just do it. Let's just
Choo
get animal
choo.
trains.
Dude, I mean, I gotta say, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but the train, like, I wish we had really nice public trans, because it sounds like so fun. Back in the day, people would take the train to Elk County with their buddies and their rifles, and they would go and they do their elk hunting and take the train back. They would just get around by railroad. That sounds like
cool.
so much fun. You
I
know?
don't have to worry about getting like a truck or something to like haul a dead cart. Did they? Okay, so
Listen.
when they hunted the elk,
Yeah.
did they just like obviously you have to do your
Put it in a
dressing and
suitcase.
no, they just weekend at Bernie's the elk on the train.
Yeah. Oh, Jim, no, he's fine. He's a quiet little elk. He won't bother anybody. Oh, oh, he is just drinking cherry juice. That silly guy. He's a real mess. No, don't wake him up.
Build it.
Yeah. So really, the only predators they have would be like coyotes and people. And I mean, a coyote's not. They're not. I'm thinking not going for bulls, but probably trying to. Thinking about some calves or smaller or sick elk.
Yeah, just get the stragglers.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much. There's bobcats, there's lynx, but they're not going for an elk.
No.
No.
So how big is that population now?
We'll get to that. I have that in my notes. I think it's about 1,000. No, 1,400. I want to say it's 1,400.
Yeah, it's pretty good. 14 times the elk in like 80
like over 100 years.
60 years. Well,
No,
I thought you said they moved them in the 60s.
Oh, no. That was no. Wait, did he say 60s?
Yeah, I might be mishearing things.
No, that's okay. I didn't really give you a year. So I think the initiative started in 1912.
Oh, okay. So it's been about a little over 100 years.
Yeah. But regardless, tremendous, especially when we talk about the land that they chose for these critters.
Okay.
It just paints a really great conservation success story. So if you do find yourself in Pennsylvania, about 4 hours west of Philadelphia, you can go to Winslow Hill for elk viewing. I think they're there pretty consistently. I believe hunting is legal. I think there's a lot of rules since the population's pretty low, but I know from 21 to 36 they had to be at least a 4-point buck. But, why not kill older critters? So the population went from about 100 and kind of like varied up to 600, then back down. In 1936 there were only 14 elk left in Pennsylvania. Not great.
Not good.
So there is, I think basically it was a mix of probably just them trying to get that land right and conserve. Farmers didn't really like the elk because elk eat crops. So they weren't a big fan. And brainworm, brainworm's is an issue with the elk. They get brainworms.
Okay.
So, here's the big thing that really hurt them, though, was strip mining in 1948.
Okay.
So, another interesting thing of how war shapes society, post-World War II, basically a significant portion of the young people in that Pennsylvania land were killed in the war, and those who did returned didn't really feel content living in the country anymore. They'd seen the world and a lot of action, so they moved off to more metropolitan areas to leave behind farming. So the old heads over there had ended up just selling off the land for coal. The coal was pretty much right below the surface in PA, so it was they had really, really easy access to it. And of course, this one's for all the libertarians out there. So there were no mining regulations, so they decimated the land. Decimated.
Hey, it's a free market.
Free market, baby. That's all. The market's gonna regulate itself.
It's gonna do it. Guys, I promise. They're doing the money thing out of the kindness of their hearts, not greed.
Donald Trump doesn't need to be president.
We don't need president. We just need a CEO of America.
I mean, it does seem more appropriate, but I don't think it'll be helpful. So eventually, some government regulation has stepped in for some of the strip mining, which I think is a good thing. A little fun fact, there's a nearby town called Centralia in Pennsylvania with... I don't... When did it start? So basically, there's been a coal fire there for... It's just never going out. There's a coal fire that will never go out.
I think I've heard about this one. It's all underneath the ground, right? There's just a fire burning under the Earth's surface. And it's a toxic waste hazard because it's producing just like insane amounts of gases and toxic smoke from what I've read and heard about. So it's literally just this uninhabitable area.
Yep. Yeah, you used to be able to like walk all around it, but I think they have like pretty recently in the last few years they've kind of cut off some of the access for health concerns. And I think I know people who have gone over there. I think I actually have friends who might have shot a doc over there. Maybe they're shooting a movie, but they did say it was like they had a very strange experience. I think they had like one Asian woman with them, and they ended up just kind of getting harassed by these like redneck on a four-wheeler.
That's no fun.
Yeah, but that's the middle of Pennsylvania for you. So that's those are some Pennsylvania coal facts. So eventually they started trying to work on these things. They took the initiative to make sure elk stay on selected public land zones. So that helps some of the human elk conflict. They had specific hunt zones, which is, good for conservation. The hunters seemed pretty respectful of the elk over there, which is cool. They never really became part of the problem. It really was just the strip mining.
Okay, that's always good to hear.
So at this point, the land over there has been decimated, and so the acid levels in the nearby water sources are about 4.1.
I'm guessing that's pretty high.
Yeah, so basically it's like a Gulf situation. The lower, the more acidic. So a healthy water source would be around 7 to 9 pH. So basically nothing can grow in that. Nothing, no fish, no bugs, no grass.
No,
too acidic.
No good.
But, however, the government, the environmental services, teamed up with paper-making companies in Pennsylvania, aka Dunder Mifflin.
Is it a real company?
No, but
okay.
It would be like Dunder Mifflin. It would be like that paper company in that area. So they teamed up with paper companies to use their waste, because apparently in their waste is a lot of lime, which is basic.
Cancel each other out.
Exactly. In doing that, they were able to really heal a lot of the of these areas and bring balanced pH levels and bring back, minnows. Basically, where in I think there was Beaver Creek was an area that was completely dead. And at this point now there's bugs, there's minnows, and in some cases, like downriver a bit, there's brown trout.
So it's making it bounce back.
It's bouncing back, and it's like, it's definitely a hopeful story and definitely a win. Yeah. So, kind of going back into their environment, they're in this forest called the Susquehannock Forest.
Okay.
It's a lovely forest. It's 265,000 acres, and it connects right to the Black Forest. And both of those are probably the best Pennsylvania has to offer. There's a dark zone, a 50 square mile dark zone there that's considered one of the best star viewing areas in the world, called Cherry Springs.
Okay.
And I got to say, I went backpacking in the Susquehannock and the Black Forest in that dark zone for my birthday one year.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a meteor shower, and it was insane.
Sounds
I've
pretty
never
choice.
seen anything like it. Yeah, it was like the whole shebang, like meteors flying through the air, exploding as they come into the atmosphere. It was bonkers. Yeah. So, a little underrated Pennsylvania story there.
Seems like Pennsylvania's the place to visit. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah, honestly. Don't tell anyone. Yeah, so part of the Susquehannock, it is a timber forest. It was used for timber, which is another reason why it was a successful environment, because they were taking down a lot of trees, but they did leave enough old growth, and that makes for ideal elk habitat, a nice mix of everything. They do a lot of mowing. They just mow fields for them in in Pennsylvania. But it's connects actually. You could connect this to wildfires and the importance of wildfires and those natural cycles, because basically wildfires create those environments for elk, which I think is cool.
Very
naturally. Cool. So one of the importance of wildfires and prescribed burns could be making better habitat for elk, and that definitely happens in the West. Prescribed burns are part of elk conservation. Okay, so yeah, it was February 7th, 1916 was the first shipment of elk. So that's exactly when it got started. And the last elk was shot in Philadelphia in the 1700s.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
It's been a sec.
Yeah. It took a while though. Or no, let me rephrase that. It was 1867. The last elk in Philadelphia was shot in 1867. It took a long time for people to actually really get to the hills of Pennsylvania and really get in there. Mm-hmm. It was prior to that Lenape and Seneca land. And but when the white man came over, they slaughtered them by the thousands. They just no respect, no regard for the species. In many cases, they weren't even killed for the meat, just for the hide.
Just for the hide, probably just to also decimate a First Nations community.
Yeah,
who relied
major
on them.
Win-win if you're messed up in the head. But pretty dark stuff, and it's just sickening, you know. It is just sickening what European colonialists have done to the environment. So over time, the land... Oh, sorry. Please continue.
Okay. Oh, no, I was going to say, it's always interesting to me because, like, the prime example of that European colonialism is you read about stuff, revolutionary time frame, America's becoming its own country and stuff. And they're like, yes, what a pristine wilderness, Ohio. That was like the golden standard of American wilderness. Like they were like, it's the most beautiful place on earth. And then no one thinks of Ohio as the pristine wilderness of the United States anymore, because everyone started going, well, yeah, let's just colonize it. Let's just go over there and
let's just build 400 Walmarts. Let's just Walmart after Walmart after Walmart, cornfield. Walmart,
I know. I say
cornfield.
It's a beautiful wilderness. Great place for a Dollar General.
There's so many Dollar Generals. And I can't even, like, I've never gone into a Dollar General and been like, yep, I'm going to buy this. I've gone into a Dollar General and been like, yeah.
It's only out of desperation for myself.
Yeah, like during Thunderbird, the kids would go into Dollar General and buy junk food. Like, it'd be like, ooh, Dollar General. Well.
God, I'm glad my Thunderbird experience, at least when I was there, they were too young. So we sat there and we're like, great, you stay in the car. You're never allowed in the Dollar General or the Walmart.
Them going into Dollar General is the least of our concerns. So over time, the land was stolen and, kind of purchased for timber. I hate when people do say like, oh, well, they made a fair deal. Like, no, you didn't. You came in with a very different way of thinking and then took things by force and destroyed it. Like, that's not an accomplishment.
No, you didn't do good. No pats on the back for this garbage.
Good. Yeah. So in this time period in the 1860s, we get rid of the mountain lion, we get rid of the wolf. The mountain lions, I do think they lingered through the 1900s. I kind of forget. I remember there was one mountain lion sighting in Pennsylvania in, I think, 1967, but that was thought to be a private collection and was shot and killed. I want to say early 1900s. They were considered extinct, though. But it is a hot topic whether there are mountain lions in Pennsylvania.
There are... a guy who's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to him about that story recently. I talked to Nate about it, and he never. So what happened is there was something bothering him in his tent that night, and on his way the next day, someone said, watch out for the black puma. But he said, I forget. Nate said, but it was also coming from some guy with a really squished face, whatever that means. I would guess maybe someone who like drinks a lot and doesn't have any teeth and their face is wrinkled and rolling in.
We're just gonna we're gonna have to get an interview with Nate on him to square up the story.
I think you're right. But if that is true, that does kind of support the private collection theory that there are mountain lions from people's private collections, which is possible.
It happens.
My cousin Marlene, who lives in upstate New York, was working as a vet tech, and one day somebody brought in a wolf there in New York where there aren't wolves, and concluded it was just escaped from somebody's private collection and got hit by a car, unfortunately.
It's scary if someone just brings a wolf into your vet clinic. You're sitting there like, oh, my cat, it's not feeling good, or oh, my dog, it ate a chicken bone. We need to get it out. And here's a wolf, just full on predator animal in your lap. Can you fix it?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of hubbub sometimes on I would say once or twice a year a mountain lion gets reported in Pennsylvania, and
But you say we hear about the mountain lions in Pennsylvania, but and I've even heard this one before. You look at Penn State, the mascot and whatnot. You see allusions to it, but no one's ever talking about this Pennsylvania elk, which sounds really cool, and you can actually go and see the things. Right.
I agree. There was a mountain lion reported, I would say 2 months ago, but it turned out to be a large cat, just a cat, just a kitty,
just big.
Forced perspective on the camera gets confusing. Okay. So back to paper. As soon as they put this lime down, within that first year, they're able to grow oats and wheat on the land. Within 1 year of putting lime on the land, they're able to grow crops, which is awesome.
Just from throwing down paper product. That's so
cool. So that pH goes from 4.7, I think it was, or 4.1 to 7.2 in 20 years. Now, these mines are, they're on their way, but for a long time, they're still just leaking sulfuric acid. So Pennsylvania made some passive treatment ponds, which treats the water as it flows. And that fixes the pH level. But there had been that issue of what do you do with these? So it's kind of this mix of those treatment plants, removing the walls of the mines, trying to insert growth, trying to insert plants. But it can be tough when, there's acid leaking out of a hole in the wall. So yeah. Some other chemicals in there would be iron, aluminum, sulfur, like I said. And so that water moves down and goes through the treatment plants into, it was actually, I just had a pond here. Oh yeah, into Porcupine Hollow Run for all of our Pennsylvanians. Like I mentioned, the species in there can now vary from mayflies, minnows, brown trout, and whatnot. Some of the Pennsylvania elk's favorite trees are maple, aspens, oaks, beech trees, or beech brush trees. I think that's it. And one thing they really like is after the timber's cut, the new blackberry thickets mixed up in the shrubbage is a big win. They also eat the bark of those trees I mentioned. They have very thick gums to be able to do it.
Don't they scrape their teeth on them too?
Yeah, they scrape their teeth.
Yeah, it's just a giant underbite. I've seen it a little bit. My ventures in the Rockies on the aspen, they love just crushing aspen bark.
Yeah. Who doesn't love just crushing some aspen?
Yeah, Just wind down after work. It's been a long day. Just take my front two bottom teeth and I just go up to the aspen trees and just start just scraping, trying to get the innards.
Exactly. Exactly. So the area has expanded. It started with about 200 square miles. Throughout the years, they did expand those elk areas. They originally planted elk in 5 different counties, but only about just the one area ended up working out. So all the other 4 populations unfortunately perished or whatnot. And I think it was just that human elk conflict and it sounds like Pennsylvania has done a lot of work to make the elk work out for them in terms of keeping that public land clear with good food, keeping it clean. It seems like it takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But what started as 200 square miles has expanded to 1,000 square miles, which is great. Back to Winslow Hill, people described in the 70s seeing about 30 to 50 elk on that hill. Now they see up to 200 elk at once in those herds, which is awesome. Currently, the things that they are facing is chronic wasting disease, which we've talked about. And the thing about that is, they're about 100 out of these, 1,400 elk have chronic wasting disease. So that's a pretty significant portion of a population, And
it's highly contagious too, which is
exactly
also very concerning.
Yeah, so when you have a pretty small, fragile population, it could wipe out the whole species at some point. So that would be a bummer. Not this, that species of eastern elk, or however you want to say it. Yeah, so that's everything I got to say about elk.
Hey, you know what? Elk are pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm definitely excited to see Pennsylvania elk someday. I don't think I've seen them, even though I've been pretty close to their habitats. I was unaware. I was just unaware.
Yeah. But, hey, shout out to the people who actually decided to bring populations back to historic ranges and stuff like that, but also, make those changes. I wouldn't have thought of just grabbing some paper mush and throwing it in the river to fix the plants. That's not normally what I'm thinking about, but hey, someone was smart enough to do it, so shout out all these smart people.
Yeah, great conservation story. Love to see Pennsylvania doing it. But I think there's another takeaway here as well. Mm-hmm. You could have a very cool environmental tourism area, which there already is over on Winslow Hill and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I see such a clear opportunity, this one's for all the capitalists out there, like to capitalize and create a really nice park system out there. I mean, part of me is, I like it how it is. Those national forests are really special. And I mean, they are thick, my friend, thick and lush, and hilly and rocky. Pennsylvania rocks.
I say I've always heard the Pennsylvania rocks from people I know who hike the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
They like to talk about the rocks on trail.
Yeah. Well, and because the mountains used to be super tall over there, and over time, they probably went down from over 10, 12, 13, 14,000 feet down to 3,000 feet, but like kind of spread out. So there's rocks everywhere and lots of hills and a lot of straight up hills. Ancient mountain range, baby.
'Cause isn't it the oldest mountain range in the world?
I don't know. Is that the case?
It's if it's not the, it's one of.
Yeah.
Appalachia's old.
Yeah, old country out there. Old country. Yeah. So I think, bring back mountain lions and wolves, which would regulate the population. Then you could just let them go. Just let them have some fun. Exactly.
As long as people don't get too up in arms about it, which we'll be covering on a later episode.
That is the... Yeah. About what? About which part? The
introduction of a wolf population.
I know, that's the thing.
Populations. You look to the Yellowstone example, and people are still to this day very, very polarized on that issue.
It is a polarizing issue. That is true.
It'll be a worthwhile episode. It's in the works.
Yeah. But I mean, I say do it. That's my take. Just they belong. Of course, it is a different species of wolf that would be introduced, so that is tricky. Mm-hmm. I think what used to be here were prairie wolves, and they introduced gray wolves, which are much bigger than prairie wolves.
Yeah.
But you do have some larger coyotes from the coy wolf population that's do be roaming around out east. So.
It's something to look into.
Something to look into.
Some more. Let's just get some more conservationship going.
Yeah, conservationship. Learn how to live with predators, and
and then stop. And then say, thankfully, people have learned their lesson to not hunt species to, at least some species, not to extinction. With the elk and bison populations are the two big ones that come to mind when I think North America hunting practices.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just end of the day, stop killing everything because you don't like it.
Yeah.
The end of the day, that was the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah, it's really hard for people to really get that through their head.
Yeah. Well, I've been Boots.
And I've been Tom.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Made for Walking.
Yeah, we'll be back soon. Bye, everyone. Good job. Bye.